So let's move on to another topic. We have several questions from viewers on this question of the buffer strips. We talked a little bit about this last week. There were some hearings going on, I believe, in the Senate last week. I think our viewers would like to know kind of what the status of things are. And the questions range from a viewer from Rochester who wants to know what happened to the roadside habitat program, another viewer who thinks that a 16-foot strip is too little, but 50 feet might be too big, and another viewer who's just wondering what the heck is going on. All of those are reasonable questions. Let's start with you, Representative Swedzinski.
Sure, and I think most of the viewers out there are this is kind of one of those things that we had a meeting down in Marshall. The governor came down. A lot of the organizations that represent a lot of the habitat organizations were there. Sierra Club and Pheasants Forever and Ducks Unlimited were all there. And I think that's from an agricultural standpoint. I've been visiting with a lot of the organizations that represent farmers who will be directly potentially impacted by this. And, Farmers Union, I think they voted early on, about a month ago. Pretty much, it was Tom Peterson who represents and up at the Capitol quite a bit. And there was a unanimous vote to kind of put the brakes on and say, hey, we really want to do a wait and see here on what's going to come out. And it was actually unanimous. And I asked them how often that happens for all their county presidents within Farmers Union, how that turns out. And it's very rare. They said maybe once or twice in his tenure that was such a unanimous question on whether or not those 50-foot buffers can go forward. And I think, it is allowed. I know I've got neighbors that have, in some spots, 200-foot buffers. And so depending on the federal program that you want to be in, there are opportunities for producers to do those things. And I think when I've been talking to my constituents about it, they're very concerned when they hear 130,000 acres that could be potentially used up to reach that 50-foot goal. There's a lot of folks concerned because they take the duty of feeding the world very seriously. But they also take the duty of keeping our water clean and for habitat and all that, and we'll see where that conversation goes. But I think it's got a lot of conversations to happen yet before I think anything should move forward.
You're Representative Carlson?
Well, just very quickly, I happen to be one of the co-sponsors of the bill. I think I'm the second on the bill. If I recall. I raised this question many years ago. I used to serve on LCCMR, that's the Legislative Citizens Commission on Minnesota Resources, and we were talking about buffers and giving out grants and so on, and I could clearly see that we probably would be doing it maybe even into the next century. It would take so long to do it that way. And I raised the question, I said, perhaps we could do this by law, but build in some incentives to encourage participation. And essentially that's what the bill does, in my view. And you mentioned the federal programs. They could participate in the federal programs. There are several counties that have on their own done this and have had a very high participation rate. But the bottom line is the goal is to preserve water quality. And I think we all have an interest, whether we're in farm country and engaged in farming or in one of the communities across the state of Minnesota, that we maintain good water quality, and that's a vital resource in any state, but in Minnesota in particular, because you talk about not only the need to have good clean water, but it's vital for our economy as well, with relying on recreation.
Senator Weston.
And Barry, in some cases it becomes a takings issue, and really it comes down to, should this be voluntary and have programs in place to come up with 16 or 50-foot buffer opportunities or options, or should it be government telling farmers this is all you can farm? And a lot of farmers have been talking to me, and even last week I met with some watershed district folks that are concerned about this, because they are farmers too. And you take 6 or 10 acres out of a field of production at $5,000 or $10,000 an acre. That's a lot of money that you're expecting those landowners and farmers in many cases to just take out of their retirement, because that in many cases is their retirement. And so compare it to that versus going and raiding somebody's 401k and just taking that much money out because government imposed a law that did that. You need to look at it from that perspective, and that's what I think is giving us some pause in the Senate, although the Senate, being under DFL control, is probably pushing this issue further than the House has been so far. And as Representative Carlson raises some good points in the efforts of clean water, but farmers are the best stewards of the land in most cases, and they have no interest in ruining their land or having it erode away. But like one of the watershed district officers or supervisors suggested to me, set up more drop-in inlets where you ditch to certain areas and then let the water go through an inlet into the river or public stream with narrower buffers was one of their suggestions. So I think there's some good discussion going on, but I think there's a lot of unanswered questions.
A viewer from Boyd wants to further carry this discussion a step further, and we actually had a question like this last week, but this viewer puts it, I think, pretty directly. Can anyone specifically name a research study that demonstrates the effectiveness of 50-foot continuous buffers? And those counties that have already had them, and we had some discussion about that last week, he's wondering about whether or not there's been specific change in water quality measured in those counties that have had that experience.
Well, yeah, sorry. I think the biggest issue here when it comes to that research portion is, if you think about, I think the governor's plan is even on, dredge ditches and all that, and just from a practicality standpoint, you don't need science to say that the water is not going to run uphill. And if you look at a lot of drainage ditches for ag drainage, you look at each side of that, and the dirt kind of runs up to each edge. So does it make sense to put 50-foot buffers on someplace where water is not going to run in? So I think there's just some practicality things that need to get worked out before potentially any of that would move forward. But as far as I know, I haven't really heard on, from the implementation standpoint, what that would mean for seeing of real quality change in quality.
Senator Westrom?
I don't recall a specific study that's that comprehensive. Certainly there's different efforts and measurements, but nothing that everybody's pointing to as conclusive evidence.
Last thought on it, Representative Carlson?
Well, one thing I was going to mention is that the land wouldn't be taken out of production totally. There's a provision that you can plant perennials so that you have permanent crops in the buffer zone, whatever the ultimate number of footage it is. That original question, they said they put out several numbers. Maybe a compromise would be 40.
Well,
or whatever.
The one dilemma with that is perennials is if you don't have livestock, there's not very many people that are growing alfalfa, which is the most common probably.
But I just wanted to say, though, that they wouldn't be totally taken out of production.
Right. Perennials are pasture.
It may not be as high a level, but
they can pasture it too is one of the options. But there's less and less folks that are pasturing, and that's kind of a nuisance piece, 50 feet wide along a river. It takes a lot of fencing to cover a strip like that.
Well, we'll have more discussion about this in the weeks ahead, I suspect. It's not over yet. As Yogi Berra once said, it's not over till it's over, and it's not over yet. So, all right.